Oh, Nexters, welcome to Next Up with me, Mark Halperin. Thank you for watching. I'm editor-in-chief of the live interactive video platform Two-Way and the host here to bring you a preview of everything that's coming next up. Grateful to you for tuning in. Hope you're glad you want to spend the time together because there's lots of stuff going on here at home, but also no shortage of consequential foreign policy news overseas, Greenland, Iran, Venezuela, Russia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in my reported monologue today, I'm super excited about this. We've all been talking about Greenland for a while. I did some reporting with folks in the administration on Capitol Hill and some foreign policy analysts, but a lot of my reporting today is more like my research monologue. I decided I need to know more about Greenland than I did 2 days ago. So I'm going to have some great stuff to share with you that I learned about Greenland and some analysis about where this whole thing is going, a very uniquely Trump story. We'll walk through it and why it matters. And again, hopefully get to what's coming next up. Why is the United States interested in Greenland? After that, three great guests to talk about Greenland and more. My dad, Morton Halperin, longtime foreign policy hand, will be here to walk through what Donald Trump's doing with Greenland and how the whole thing could be resolved. Ben Ferguson will be here, a great talker, conservative. And then Yemisi Egbiwale will be here as well. The two of them will talk a little foreign, but also some domestic. And I'm looking forward to getting their thoughts on everything. Before that, though, here is my reported monologue on Greenland. This is such an interesting story to me. It's a huge story. And we saw this week in Washington at the senior most levels, the foreign ministers of both Denmark and Greenland coming to the United States, meeting with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, with Marco Rubio, the president, talking about this topic on social media, in White House photo opportunities. It's a huge question, and the president's made it clear that he's in conflict, not just with Denmark and Greenland, but with all of Europe, basically, over this question of who will control Greenland. And the president has said, no compromise, no kind of halfway measure. He wants it all. He wants the United States to control it. And he said, with an emphasis on national security, that the United States needs to control Greenland to make sure that Russia and China do not. Europe is not pleased. They've sent their own military forces to Greenland and some more coming. Symbolic show of force. I don't think anybody thinks they're there to actually deter a United States invasion. And no one I talk to expects a United States invasion. What they do expect, though, is for this story to percolate for quite some time as the United States, for economic, geopolitical, sphere of influence, economic, military reasons, looks to play a different role in Greenland. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what the history of all this is, and then talk about where it might go. Okay, now this has been a topic not just on cable news, but a story has hit at least some cultural vein when it makes it to the late night comedy shows. That is still a great use for them because the folks in those writer rooms are reading all the headlines and they've got lots of stuff to joke about. Here's Jimmy Fallon on Greenland. S10, please.
Yeah, Trump is still talking about taking over Greenland, and he said that if we invaded, their only defense would be 2 dog sleds. Kristi Noem was like, I can take care of those. It's interesting because dog sled drivers and Trump's brain doctor both say the same thing, mush, mush.
All right, so Greenland is this big island, right? And it's got its own government, it's got its own leadership. But it's very connected to Denmark, and it has been now for 3 centuries. It's been different, had a different relationship over the years. It's been a colony back when colonies were allowed. Today, Greenland largely governs itself, but they're dependent on Denmark for a lot of economic aid, for national security protection, and economic subsidies. There's always been talk last decades about eventually there being a path towards independence. But as we'll discuss here in a minute, Greenland really couldn't be an independent country. It's too reliant on the current relationship with Denmark to survive on its own. It's got 56,000 people, okay? 56,000 people. To put that in context, that's how many people live in Burlington, Vermont. That's how many people fit in Dodger Stadium. It is a tiny population. It's the size of people who you see at a Dodger game, the whole country. And they're spread out. Some of them live in a few more urban-y areas, but a lot of them live in very rural areas where if you want to take a bath, you melt a block of ice, literally, to take your bath. How big is it? It's gigantic. If you look at it on a map, it seems pretty big, but the maps sort of lie. Greenland is huge. It's 5 times the size of California. Okay, so imagine the number of people who live in Burlington, Vermont, living in the largest island in the world, 5 times the size of California. Just imagine replacing all the strip malls and replacing them with glaciers. That's how big it is, okay? Slightly bigger than Mexico, and yet extremely rural. 80% of it covered with ice. They have fewer than 100 miles of paved roads, okay? So this is a weird place. I'm not saying there's nowhere like it on Earth, but again, 56,000 people living in a country 5 times the size of California with 100 miles of paved roads. Most people, if you want to get around, you do it by air. You do it by plane or some other aircraft. It's a beautiful place, and a bunch of news organizations, because it's such an irresistible story, have sent reporters and photographers there. I want to show you a couple pictures. I want to buy one of these houses. I'm not sure how much they cost. Here's A6. This is a picture of Greenland, and they have these very colorful houses, at least in parts of the country. This is like an irresistible shot for a photographer. So there you see these colorful houses. If you're not listening to the podcast, you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. This is like a painting. It's beautiful, snow-covered houses nestled on a hill overlooking the water. Here's the same type of shot. This is the summer though, A7. This is again beautiful. Just a picture book kind of images. Okay, now what kind of place is this? When people think about every country in the world, what do they got? Most every country's got Starbucks, got McDonald's, got Walmarts. So I looked it up. Guess how many they have each of those 3. Combined total, Starbucks, McDonald's, and Walmarts on Greenland, 0. They've got other stores, but they don't have those great American brands. They're not even a member of FIFA. They've tried to get into FIFA for soccer. They're not even in. So part of why this story is so interesting and so complicated is you've got the relationship between Greenland and Denmark. Then you've got NATO hovering over the whole thing. And then you've got the people of Greenland. And every reporter who goes there finds the same thing. There's some public opinion polling that finds the same thing. There are some amongst the 56,000 who would like a closer relationship with the United States. But every reporter who goes finds roughly the same thing, A13. People there are not super excited to be part of the United States in any way. Here's the headline from the New York Times, quote, "We're not stupid. What Greenlanders would say to Trump. A visit to Greenland reveals a swirl of feelings as people nervously await talks with the Trump administration about the island's future." The New York Times characterizes how people in Greenland feel about Donald Trump's toying with them. It's the word the Times used. They say there's a kaleidoscope of feelings that swirl in Greenland itself. People are shocked, angry, confused, humiliated, insulted, and most of all scared. None of that sounds happy, right? I read the list when I was reading the story and I thought, well, maybe they'll throw in hopeful or curious. No. Shocked, angry, confused, humiliated, insulted, and most of all scared. Here's a quote from a guy named Canuck Abelson, who says, "I hunt whales and seals. In the United States, they think whales and seals are cute and shouldn't be hunted. That's what I'm afraid of." So that's a particular complaint. Here is from the BBC, a number of sound bites from people. We used to call them man on the street. Now we call them people on the streets, the snowy streets from Greenland, talking about how they feel about the prospects of an affiliation with the United States or an invasion. S7, please.
I don't want to be a part of U.S. and they should leave us alone.
Cannot take our country. It's our. We need to get and stand together and fight for it.
I'd like to encourage to use your both ear wisely and speak less. We are not for sale.
All right, you can cut out of this one because people on the podcast won't hear it. Here's more of the same. This is from the Telegraph. Same thing. They went and surveyed what people in the streets said, and I don't have any reason to believe these are misleading. They seem, by all the reporting, to be pretty representative of what people in Greenland think, which is no enthusiasm for this project. S12, please.
A tweet about Greenland was the next target, so that was scary. I try to be pragmatic I think there's a big loss of control in a sense of what's happening with your country, and that's scary.
So you think Trump is bluffing when he's saying that, he won't rule out using force to take Greenland?
Well, I'm saying that it's just a very unrealistic scenario, and that there would be no need for it. So I don't see it as something that we should take as seriously as a lot of different actors right now are taking it.
In our home, my teenage daughter came to me and said, maybe now it's time to move outside of Greenland, because she was scared of what's happening here. I never heard her say that before, so it was a bit scary to have this responsibility as a mother, try and be calm and say everything will be fine, even though we don't know what's going to happen.
All right, so Europe's against this. The Danes are against it. People in Greenland, and including the government, but the people itself all seem to be against this. The president has emphasized national security, even though there's an American base there already. Even though the current arrangement allows for the United States to expand the military presence, there's a desire for the United States to change the status quo, and as the president has said, to move Greenland's relationship with a bigger country away from Denmark towards the United States. Okay, now what's the status of the place there? I've told you they don't have any Walmarts. I've told you that there's 56,000 people there. Here's what the Wall Street Journal says about Greenland now, and the state of things there. They're very reliant on the Danes for healthcare. They have universal healthcare. They wouldn't get that necessarily if they broke up with Denmark and affiliated with the United States. And the current economy, I got to tell you, folks, I would say it's screwed up. It's not thriving. Okay, it's a slow-growing economy. The Wall Street Journal says heavily reliant on the $1 billion a year they get from Denmark. And they are big into the export of shellfish, seafood, okay? A lot of shrimp. Interesting. I never would have thought about this as a basis for an economy. A lot of it's based on selling shrimp. Looking for the number here. Their exports of shrimp. Yeah, here it is. Seafood exports. 98% of the exports from Greenland are from seafood. And they've got a problem because of global warming. There's less shrimp than there used to be. The three main big things that they send out are halibut, cod, and shrimp. And apparently the halibut and the cod are eating the shrimp now because there's more of them. So less shrimp, which they need to export. And again, very reliant. $1 billion a year is a lot of money that they get from Denmark. And here's a quote from the Wall Street Journal. Greenlandic officials quietly concede that in the short term, at least, anyone running this island is more likely to find themselves staring down a money pit rather than a gold mine. One more from the Journal. The island is one of the world's biggest welfare states, a vast expanse of ice-clad villages whose residents, reachable only by helicopter and prop jet, are nonetheless accustomed to the perks of Denmark's social democracy, free healthcare, robust schools. It could also take years and billions of dollars to transform an economy, again, where 98% of its exports are from seafood. Now, there's mining potential there, and the president and others have talked about that. And global warming, while it's hurting their seafood, it makes it easier to mine, right? Because a lot of the 80% of the country's under ice, more likely to be able to get there and mine if the ice is melting. Right now, Denmark provides half of the revenue that the Greenlandic government gets. It's 20% of the island's GDP. Here's what they pay for. They pay for police, courts, banking, and the healthcare and defense. That's a lot. And so if the United States, if the president gets his way and he takes the control of Denmark away, somebody's going to have to cover that stuff. And the question is do the United States taxpayers want to pay for it? Don't know the answer to that question, but it would be a lot. So what are people talking about? They're talking about no invasion, even though the president keeps threatening it. Stephen Miller has talked about it. Here's what the New York Times says as a possibility for changing things, which is what we have in a relationship with the Marshall Islands. Okay, Marshall Islands in the Pacific recently re-upped a relationship with the United States. It's called a Compact of Free Association. Okay, the government there is independent to the United States, so it's not a state, but it receives $115 million a year from the U.S. taxpayers. by granting, in return, they grant America authority over defense. So piece of this is about defense, no question. But a piece of this is also about the economy. And what could we get there? There could be tourism there. There could be access to minerals, including those rare earth minerals that have become such an important part of America's view of the world in the wake of trying to make sure China doesn't have leverage over the United States. And then there's just the question of sphere of influence, of keeping China and Russia away diplomatically, economically, national security from this hemisphere. NBC says, A4, please, that if we wanted to just buy Greenland, if we wanted to say, not take it militarily, but say to the Danes, we want it, estimate is $700 billion. I don't know where they got that number in the scheme of things. That's a lot of money, $700 billion plus trying to make sure that people there are happy. People have talked about, Reuters has reported, the administration have discussed giving to win over the hearts and minds of people in Greenland, maybe giving them all some money. This story has come to a head because this week on Wednesday, as I said, Marco Rubio, the vice president, met with the two foreign ministers of both Denmark and of Greenland to try to win them over and have a conversation. Did not go well. Here is how the United States, there's some coverage. This is S1. This is how media around the world has been covering this story. S1, please.
Nunatsinni Danmarkimiillu uqaajartuutigineqartut USA-mut ullumi ataatimiinnermi angunneqarput.
Germany has announced it will send troops to Greenland for the first time, along with other European countries. It's part of measures to boost defense on the Arctic island, as U.S. President Donald Trump insists the Danish territory is essential for U.S. national security.
Interesting to hear the foreign minister use that word conquer. That it is clear that the president of the United States in the year 2026 wants to conquer.
The minister says it's totally unacceptable not to respect Greenland's territory. That's after he met with Vice President J.D. Vance for talking.
There really is a sense of disbelief on the streets here in Nuuk that the Greenlanders have found themselves in this situation. We've just been driving around and seeing that there are fresh Greenland flags flying all over the capital. There's even 2 new flags flying over the EU building here in Nuuk. Now,
so great interest around the world in this. It's a compelling story. It's an only Donald Trump story, right? Other presidents have talked about wanting more control over Greenland, and this is not a new concept. But Donald Trump threatening military action, Donald Trump basically saying my way or the highway, gotten a lot of attention. So this meeting on Wednesday at the White House, the foreign ministers, it was sad, I have to say. The two foreign ministers came out of the meeting, and here's the headline first about the meeting from the New York Times. Where's that about the meeting? All right, New York Post. There are 2 parts of this that made me very sad in the aftermath of the meeting, where the Danes and the Greenlandic foreign ministers came out and they said, it didn't go all that well, but we're going to continue to talk. New York Post pointed out that the foreign ministers light up after high-stakes meeting. Watch this video. They come out of the meeting at the White House, and they both obviously have some sort of nicotine addiction, and they race to be able to smoke. Here it is, S6, please. This made me sad. I don't mean to look down on people who have tobacco addiction, but I found it a little sad to see them have to race out to get their cigarettes. Here it is, S6. All right, so you see him there leaving the White House. The guy's jogging. That's the Danish foreign minister. He's running. You think, well, where's he got to get to so urgently? Opens the trunk. They're putting stuff in there. Where's he got to go? Well, they got to get to smoke. So you see him sharing another cigarette with his Greenlandic counterpart. So you look at the looks on their eyes if you're not listening to the podcast, but you're watching. And then they spoke. They spoke at a press conference. They spoke. The Danish foreign minister was on with Brett Baer. Here he is. Here's some headlines. A14, Washington Post says that there's a fundamental disagreement. Still don't know exactly what was said in the meeting, what the president wants. Washington Post, Vance's Greenland meeting ends with, quote, fundamental disagreement. Diplomats from Denmark and Greenland agree to set up a, quote, high-level working group, but said there was little consensus. Here's Mr. Rasmussen, the foreign minister of Denmark, talking to Brett Baer, S5.
I mean, this is 2026. You trade with people, but you don't trade people. And there's a third way forward. And that's what we agreed today, that we will now set up this high-level working group to explore whether there's a way forward where we can accommodate, which I totally agree, the president's concern and still respect, of course, the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the Greenlandic people's right to self-determination.
Mr. Foreign.
So their press conference was sad. They're clearly, have learned the lessons. If you want to deal with Donald Trump, you have to butter him up, say nice things to him, give him what he wants, but they can't give him what he wants. And you can understand why they'd be resistant. First of all, their people don't want to be part of the United States. Denmark doesn't want to give up the relationship. They don't know what's in it for them at this point. But also, they got a lot of people on their side, okay? They got a lot of people on their side. NATO's against it. Denmark's against it. The people of Greenland appear to be against it. And this talk of a military invasion has inspired a lot of people in the United States to be against it. Here's Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, a Republican, who is not high on a military invasion, to say the least. S8, please.
To invade Greenland and attack its sovereignty, a fellow NATO country, would be weapons-grade stupid. President Trump is not weapons-grade stupid, nor is Marco Rubio.
All right, so who else is against not just a military invasion, but just the whole concept of trying to strong-arm Denmark into giving up Greenland and strong-arming the people of Greenland? New York Post, not for it. A2, please. This is a headline of an editorial that ran after the meeting. Trump's Greenland gambit is a sideshow that the forces of freedom don't need. They're against it. Who's also significantly against it? The American people. Number of polls out this week suggesting there's no support for this. Here's Quinnipiac. They did a poll. Again, I could show you others. Same thing. In the wake of the discussions about the United States trying to either buy Greenland or use military force to take control, here's what the voters in their polls say. 86-9 said they oppose the United States trying to take Greenland by military force. So here you have the president saying we might use military force, and 9% are for it, 9% of the whole country. And then the question of should the United States buy Greenland, only 37% are for it, 55 against. Again, in our divided country, 55 is a landslide, and a lot of that's independents. Democrats very much against, Republicans more for it, but independents breaking against the president's point of view. So where does that leave us? This is a story that's, there are a lot of other stories in the news. We'll talk about it, some of them in a minute. But where we are is the president has no allies on this right now, right? Doesn't have Greenland, doesn't have Denmark, doesn't have Europe, China, Russia. Nobody else is for this. The American people are against it. Most people in Congress are against it. Privately, Republicans would say they're against it. And it's a little confusing because what the president says he wants, which is a more robust defense capacity, he could get because under the current agreement, the United States can expand its military presence. What I believe is going on from having reported this out this week with a lot of people who understand how Donald Trump works is he wants maximum leverage. We talk about Trump and leverage here all the time. He wants maximum leverage. He wants to be able to get what he can get in terms of economics, diplomacy, military, and at the lowest cost to the United States. And so I think what you're going to see is an effort to say, just how much public opinion does he need to move, particularly in Greenland, to force the hand? And you saw in the sad sack reaction of the foreign ministers from the two countries, from Denmark and from Greenland, they know they don't have a lot of leverage. They know that if the president wants to force this, they're going to have to give something up. And I think you're going to see a relationship where Denmark is still connected to Greenland, as they have been for centuries. The people of Greenland are made better off economically, or at least have that hope. And the president gets what he wanted in the first term and other presidents have wanted, which is big access where he doesn't have to check with the Danes, doesn't have to pass anything through the legislature there. If the United States wants something there in terms of rare earth minerals, in terms of military, in terms of sphere of influence and the economy, the United States can get it. That's what he's going for. And he's got a lot of leverage. These threats are giving him leverage. And you can see it in the eyes of the Europeans. They know they need to work something out. And I believe that Marco Rubio and the vice president and others will work something out. And the president will someday go to Greenland. And I'm not saying he's going to visit a Trump casino, but I predict he'll be there before too long. All right, that's my reported monologue on what's up with Greenland. 56,000 people. Let me know what you think. Send me your email thoughts at nextuphalperin@gmail.com. Would love to know what you think about this whole Greenland thing and whether you think the United States should do more to get more out of this relationship. If you want to watch the full conversations we have here, always you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's on YouTube at Next Up Halperin. Full episodes, bonus moments, everything you want to see. YouTube.com/@NextUpHalperin. And you can always listen to the program too. Want maximum audience on all platforms. So subscribe to Next Up with Mark Halperin, wherever you get your podcasts. Turn on the downloads there. New episodes will hit Tuesdays and Thursdays. You'll get them the moment they drop. And share all the ability of people to listen and watch with your friends so more people can be Nexters. Grateful to you. All right. You can stay ahead of every story by watching and listening Tuesdays and Thursdays. Quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the policy side of this. What is Donald Trump actually up to in Greenland? And how can he get his way by perseverance or pressure? Morton H. Halperin, longtime national security advisor and analyst, and my dad, he's next up. Hey everybody, you know, going online without ExpressVPN, it's like not having a case for your phone. Most of the time, you'll probably be okay, but all it takes is one drop, and you'll wish you'd spent those few extra dollars on protection. Public Wi-Fi at cafes, at hotels, at airports, it's all wide open. Hackers on those very same networks can grab your passwords, your bank logins, your cards. It doesn't take much skill either to do that. Your data is worth up to $1,000 on the dark web. ExpressVPN encrypts everything in an unbreakable tunnel so no one touches it. I always fire it up on the road, whether I'm at an airport, a coffee shop, even when I'm using the guest network at a friend's place. Just one tap and I'm locked down. Peace of mind is everything when you're handling your sensitive stuff. It's super easy, one button app. It works on every device, billion-year encryption. And right now, plans are starting at just $3.49 a month. That's 12 cents a day. It's rated #1 by CNET and The Verge. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/nextup. Again, that's expressvpn.com/nextup to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months. Again, expressvpn.com/nextup. All right, joining me now next up to explore more about Greenland and what's going on with the Trump administration and other foreign policy hotspots around the world. A legendary Washington figure, been involved in national security policy at the highest levels of government, going back to the Nixon and Johnson administrations, Johnson and Nixon administrations, to get my chronology right. My dad, Morton H. Halperin. Dad, thanks for coming back on Next Up.
My pleasure.
Okay, so as I made clear in the monologue, there's a lot of things that are screwed up because of Donald Trump's involvement here. But he's not the first president who's talked about having a stronger relationship with Greenland for national security and other purposes. If you were working for the president, if you were national security advisor, and it was a normal president, it wasn't someone who ruled by Truth Social, wasn't someone who threatened other NATO countries, and he said, for national security reasons and economic reasons, we need a closer relationship here. How would a normal government be trying to execute this?
You'd first figure out exactly what you need. You know, what are the things that you don't have now the right to do in Greenland? And you would compile a list, and then you would circulate that to the relevant government agencies, to the Defense Department, the State Department, and get agreement on what we need, and get agreement from the State Department that there's a way to move forward to negotiate that. And then you would explain to Greenland, and then publicly, why you need these things and what exactly you need. And then the Danish government would almost certainly say yes. And then you would move forward and implement it. If they said no, then you would go to NATO as a whole and say, this is the things we need from Greenland. We need your help in persuading Denmark that it should be done. And it's inconceivable to me that we want something that Denmark wouldn't give us, unless it's...
Right. Okay. So I like the way you laid it out, and I think to some extent that's what's happening under the veneer of all the Trump-like fireworks. This one's complicated. You worked when you were in the government on something vaguely similar, which was the question of Okinawa, which the United States, kind of in reverse, which is the United States had control of Okinawa after World War II, island off the main islands of Japan. And the question was how to negotiate back. The similarity there for me is you had the Tokyo government, which in this case is kind of the equivalent of the Danes. You had the government in Okinawa, which was not always aligned with the Tokyo government, just as the government of Greenland is not fully aligned with the government of Denmark. And then you have the people, right? What do the people want? So in this case, it's complicated, right? Because you've got Denmark, you've got the government of Greenland, you've got the people. Then you also have NATO, and NATO is obviously very concerned about it. Well, so there are a lot of constituencies. In this case, isn't the only difference from how you laid it out? Well, I shouldn't ask it with prejudice. Seems to me one could argue this point. I want you to address it. Here you got Trump, I think, sharing your view, which is I want to get stuff that, well, not your view, but this is any American president who said we want these things, primarily national security, but also economic and sphere of influence. It's our hemisphere. The only difference from how Trump's doing it and how you laid out sort of the template of a normal president is he's doing it with a lot of bluster and threats to increase his leverage. But in the end, they said yesterday they're going to have this working group. In the end, Marco Rubio, I think, has signaled this to Capitol Hill. It's normal. It just has the overlay of bluster. What do you think of that argument?
Well, I think it's possibly true. It's unclear what Trump wants. Sometimes he seems to be suggesting that he wants to make Greenland part of the United States, a non-self-governed territory of the United States, as it is, I gather, with the Danes, rather than specific things like a base, the right to bring in forces without consulting with the Danish government or the Greenland government, the right to shut the radios down. In other words, there's specific things that he may want. He's not indicating what that is. And he's suggesting that what he may want is the right to do whatever he wants to do without consulting in advance with the Danish government or with the Greenland government. And there's just no reason for that. There's no reason to think they will say no. And if they say no about something, then you negotiate about that. He seems to be looking for a fight rather than looking for a way to get the specific things that he wants, all of which I think we should get, can get, and it's in the Danish interest, it's in NATO's interest, and the United States' interest.
When you said should get, meaning what? Meaning that this is a legitimate American interest on the at least on the national security side, but maybe even on the economic side, because the rare earth minerals are significant. Are you saying the United States is entitled to these things?
Well, they're entitled to them because we're in NATO and we're the main guarantee of the security of all these countries. That's been the history of the relationship. If you go back to the beginning of NATO, there's always been a trade-off between the European countries wanting security protection from the United States and us saying, well, if you want that, we have to have certain things. For example, we insisted that Germany had to be reowned. The rest of the NATO countries said Germany is a terrible country. We're against the rearmament of Germany. We don't want a German army. The Germans didn't want an army. And we said, we're not creating NATO without Germany, without a German army, because we're not going to be large enough and capable to dealing with the Russians. Then the Germans agreed to come in. The rest of NATO agreed to accept Germany. Then we said, and we have to put nuclear weapons on German territory. And the Germans said, no, we don't want nuclear weapons. And the French said, we certainly don't want nuclear weapons on German territory. And we said, no NATO without U.S. forces in Germany, no U.S. forces in Germany without nuclear weapons. And we got our way and we insisted on it. And everybody accepted it because it wasn't done it was very clear what we wanted. And it was presented to them as this is what we need in order to defend you and defend the alliance. And that's what we should be doing here. And then it would be straightforward.
This is where the way you just framed it to me is where the most reasonable aspect of what the president's doing can be found. We're the senior partner in this partnership, And the vice president's involvement raises the hackles in Europe because they see him as hostile to NATO and hostile to Europe. But what the president seems to be saying, and other presidents have raised this, other national security people have raised it, this is a unique piece of real estate. This is not just some random island. This is a massive island, leaving the rare earth minerals aside. That's geographical positioning as a matter of staging offense and defensive military operations, for intelligence, for shipping. This is a vital piece in our hemisphere. And so if the president, and because of the view, you and I don't totally agree about NATO, but they're a junior partner. They're not as robust in serving
they've
as
always
a
been a
counterweight.
junior partner.
So, yeah, but what I'm saying is, isn't it reasonable for the president to say, we can't let the Dutch and the Danes and the French say what the best way to use this to defend all of the
but
West
they're not
is?
saying they're not giving us what we want. We have to say what we want.
But they are in this sense. One of their reactions is a bunch of European countries are sending forces to Denmark now, and
Because
they're saying
president is threatening to use military force without warning, without specifying and that's unacceptable. At the end of the day, our alternative is not to use military force. Our alternative is to leave NATO, to say we won't defend, which is what we've done. What we did about Germany, what we did about nuclear weapons, what we did about strategy on when we use nuclear weapons. Those are much more important things than what the president is now talking. And our position has always been, we will tell you what we need to remain in the alliance, and you will tell us whether you're prepared to do that. And if you're not, we won't be able to stay in the alliance. That's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, so last one on this, and then we'll move to Iran. What's the national security argument on behalf of the United States and NATO for the United States to have effective control, not the Danes having effective control, the United States having effective control militarily over Greenland?
That we can implement that, take military action when we need to do so, without going to the Danish government and then discovering they're in a coalition government. They can't agree. They have to have an election first. There are lots of reasons why, and that was again the fight with Japan as to when we needed to consult the Japanese government, because we thought the Japanese government might not be able to agree. So we wanted permission in advance that we could do certain things that we thought were necessary to support the security.
One more, and this gets away from national security, but it's another area you know a lot about, which is self-determination. There's an irony in the fact that the current control over all these things, the national security and to some extent the economy of Greenland, is an imperial power, across the ocean. What if you were in the government and the president, you were advising this president, what role should the wishes of the 56,000 people who live in Greenland play in these negotiations from your point of view?
Yeah, again, the Okinawa is a good example. We took the position then that the Okinawans had no role in this, that this was a decision of the Japanese government, because we thought, I think correctly, the easier way to get control is through the government. That's the controlling power. And so I think we should tell the Danes, the Greenlanders don't get a veto.
Yeah, so this is when you sound like an imperialist rather than a human rights advocate, because to me, that's the mistake that you made, you plural, with the Okinawans is the Okinawans today, not just the negotiation of the return of control of Okinawa to the Japanese, but now we've had decades of experience with military bases there. It's very comparable. The Okinawans hate the United States and they resent Tokyo for not taking into account their point of view. Shouldn't the United States, not just to do the right thing, but the smart thing, do this not to say to the Danes, you guys decide, we'll decide this together and carve it up. Those 56,000 people should have a voice both for doing what's right, but also doing what's smart, or no?
Well, you should try to give them a voice and to try to accommodate them as much as possible. But just as if the people of Omaha said they don't want a SAC base there, we say we're sorry. The United States decides that, not the people of Omaha or the people of Nebraska. And that's the case with Okinawa. It's up to the Japanese government to work it out with those people. If you had a situation where, as some people say, you have some of, where the Greenlanders want the United States in, and the Danes are saying no, then I think there would be an issue that we need to look at.
All right,
But
it's a
that's
rare
not
moment. It's a rare moment where I'm for the people and you're for the powerful. Usually
Right.
it's the opposite.
No, I'm for the people too.
Well, but you said we should just deal with the Danes. We shouldn't deal with the 56,000 people.
Right,
Did I
because it's not our
misunderstand?
business to go into we should not get involved in Spain, for example, where there's a part of Spain that wants independence and say we're not going to have bases in that part of Spain because the people there. We have to deal with the countries that we recognize as sovereign in the territory.
Right. Well, it's complicated because Greenland's kind of sovereign.
Right.
They're sovereign. They're sovereign-ish.
Yeah, but all of that is we worked out if we just calmly said what we wanted, made it public, and then negotiated, we get what we want without a crisis. It seems to me like we're looking for a crisis rather than needing one.
Right. All right, let's talk about Iran. This is another complicated foreign policy and national security challenge, multidimensional. Let's just talk about this concept of regime change, okay? If you look at the history, not just the Middle East, but in other places, when a government is toppled, it's not typically replaced by Thomas Jefferson and Andrew and George Washington. So if you look at the forces in Iran, if the current government leaves, is there a good scenario where they're replaced by a government that's not repressive, controlled by the military, theocracy, or not?
There are people who know Iran who say there is. And Iran was a democracy. The Shah took power and was eventually forced out, but then because of the turmoil, this autocratic government took power. People were very hopeful. I had a number of Iranian friends who were very hopeful that if the Shah, there would be a democratic government, and have continued to say that if you can find a way to get rid of this theocracy, which seized the moment to seize power, that there is a substantial chance of a democratic government in Iran, and at least some chance, and some chance worth working for, because it would be a fundamental change in the Middle East if you had a democratic government in Iran. Unlike Iraq, where we thought it was going to be easy to do it, Iran is not impossible. It's certainly not certain, but it's not impossible.
Right. So what is the morally right and smart things the United States government do to foster that possibility of a Iranian
Make clear that
government?
we stand with the Iranian people in their desire to have a democratic government, to have their human rights respected, and that we want to work with the Iranian government. We see no reason why we can't have peaceful relations with them. That will have to mean that they accept eventually the Israeli government, but we can deal with that down the road. And it means making clear that we support them because we believe they are working to establish a democratic government, which are clearly some of them are. Some of them clearly are.
That's what you say should be being done. How would you rate the job the Trump administration is doing to live up to the ideas that you espouse to foster change?
Well, I think the president's done some of the things in the right direction. What I find objectionable is him suggesting that we would use military force. I don't think there's a basis in Iran to use military force. If you had a coup, if you had a revolution and there was a democratic government, and then say the Russians were helping the current people try to come back, then there would be a basis for saying we will, at the request of the de facto regime.
You don't think there's an argument for a limited use of force to send a signal to the Iranian people that the United States is on their side?
I think it will send a signal to them that we want to take over Iran, just as we want to take over Greenland. I don't think the Iranian people trust us to put in a government that would be based on their interests and what they wanted rather than what we wanted from them. So I don't think we have the trust to do that.
Okay. One last topic, the question of the Monroe Doctrine, or now the Donroe Doctrine. Thomas Friedman famously said the earth is flat. in the world in which we live now, where people can get on airplanes and get on social media and internet and be virtually in China or in Asia. Is there meaning to the notion of the Western Hemisphere being the United States' sphere of influence? Does that still have any meaning from a military or diplomatic or economic point of view?
No, I think it was invented at a time when every major power had a sphere of influence in some part of the world, in which colonies were considered legitimate. And so the question was, would we be different from the British and the French and the Russians and be a powerful nation which didn't create colonies because we thought we were different and there was a new world? And there wasn't a new world. And so it was a very different situation. Now there's the UN, there's in fact international law, which says, among other things, the colonies are illegal, that the people who live in a territory have the right to self-determination in that territory. And we certainly have no reason to challenge that. We should accept that as legitimate and build on that. And we've done as well as we needed to in the Western Hemisphere. I don't see what we would gain by trying to claim greater authority over those countries. There's no country in the Western Hemisphere that wants to be part of the American sphere of interest. They want to work with us. They want to be treated as sovereign nations. And we have, I think, not only a moral interest, but a political interest in doing that, because we're much more likely to get cooperation from them if we treat them as sovereign equals than if we try to tell them that we can tell them what to do.
You've done a ton of work on Cuba. Is it possible that that government will fall?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's certainly not certain, but it is possible. But I think we should have been, for the past, whatever it is, 50 years, trying to work with the Cuban government to push them towards democracy and to make clearer. And there were times when we were about to do that, including in the Clinton administration, before the Cubans shot down an American plane flying over Cuba with American citizens running. But we have not, in my view, been willing to try to improve relations with the Cubans in a way to try to help promote the transition to a democratic government, which I think the majority of the Cubans want. And I think we could have been more effective in helping them move in that direction.
All right. Dr. Morton H. Halperin's worked at the highest levels of American foreign policy and national security for more than half a century. And very grateful, Dad, always for you to share your experience
Always
and
a
wisdom
pleasure.
with us. Thanks. All right. Next up, we're going to come back home. We're going to talk with our panel about American domestic policy and what's going on in Minnesota, in Washington, and around the country. Panel's coming up right after this. They're next up. Are you being lied to? They tell you to max out your 401k, your IRA, and then they make you beg for permission to use your own money. It's time to get to the truth and discover a better way to grow and protect your own money. Bank on yourself. It's the proven retirement plan alternative banks and Wall Street desperately hope you never hear about. It gives you guaranteed growth and retirement income that never goes backward when markets tumble. Your principal and growth are locked in with tax-free retirement income and a zero tax rate under current law. Access your money anytime for emergencies or opportunities that come up. No penalties, no restrictions, and it keeps growing like you never touched it. Built-in inflation protection means your savings grow every year, good times or bad. Plus, you'll always know the minimum guaranteed value of your retirement savings when you need them. You can get a free report that reveals how you can bank on yourself and enjoy tax-free retirement income, guaranteed growth, and control of your money. Just go to bankonyourself.com/mark and get your free report. Again, that's bankonyourself.com/mark, bankonyourself.com/mark. All right, joining me now, two fan favorites. We can call them that because we only book fan favorites here. Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson podcast, co-host of The Verdict with Ben Ferguson, featuring Ted Cruz. Now it's called The Verdict with Ted Cruz. And Yemisi Egbewala, senior strategist in the Biden communications operation and longtime senior advisor for the group Dream for America. Happy New Year to you both. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. We're going to talk domestic because most of the show's been about foreign policy, but I want to start by asking you guys, just like you're Nostradamus looking to the future, what's the final verdict going to be in like the Wikipedia entry of each of these stories that are in the news now? Ben, start with you. How is Greenland going to end? What's like the headline on Donald Trump's Wikipedia entry under the Greenland section? How's it going to end?
I think that people of Greenland are going to be like, I'd love to have an American passport and have the protections of the U.S., and it's going to be a major foreign policy win to keep China and Russia out of the area. It's vitally important to our national interests. And so I actually believe the president's being really smart about this. He's talked about it a lot. He's gotten the idea to become normalized in the heads of people that have to make a choice in Greenland at some point. And I do think it's really important to protect the Western Hemisphere. So I think that's probably going to be his legacy. And I bet you before he leaves the White House, Greenland will be a part of the United States.
But not a state, kind of like Marshall Islands? Or
Yeah. I don't think it'll be a state. No, I don't.
All right. So, Ben thinks that part of America and separated from the Danes. Do you agree?
No, I think the Wikipedia entry might be like Trump's pet issue finally put down. So I think that, Congressman Randy Fine thinks that he can figure out some legislation to make Greenland a U.S. state. I don't think that'll happen. I think there's good bipartisan consensus that they are uncomfortable with the idea. More recently, Senator Wicker, who's chair of the Senate Arms Committee, said that he's uncomfortable with the idea and is really pushing back against a lot of the rhetoric. And that's surprising, right? Because I think a Rand Paul, a Tom Tillis, those, Lisa Murkowski, those might be our usual suspects, but somebody like Wicker, hemming and hawing, Mitch McConnell as well. I think traditionalists in Congress will be uncomfortable with the situation. And I think the president first came up with the idea in an either or situation when he said, we can either have Greenland or Canada or the Panama Canal. It just feels like Greenland is the easiest thing. I don't think this is a serious venture.
All right, let's stay with the embassy. What's going to be in the Trump Wikipedia entry about Venezuela?
Venezuela.
I can't wait to hear your take on this one.
What's it going to say? It's going to say Donald Trump removed Maduro, and then what happened?
And then we adopted a country with millions of people looking for direction, and we refocused all of our resources, energy, and priorities to our neighbors in the Southern Hemisphere instead of our neighbors right here at home.
All right, Ben, how's this one end?
I think it's going to be in the history books of Wikipedia, as you described it, as the president not only getting rid of a individual that was a threat to this country, but also it goes back to protecting this nation from China and Russia. And I also think it sent a very clear message, and it's going to be the beginning of the end of the narco-terrorists. And I think it's going to have a huge impact on Mexico as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why the president did it. It's national security. It's getting rid of the drug trade. It's also freeing people that need it. And I also think he's smart enough to realize I'm not going to invade. I'm not trying to export democracy. The people are going to have an opportunity to actually have their votes counted. They weren't counted last time. And so he rectified that major problem.
Ben, you're making Caroline Leavitt look dour and pessimistic about the Trump agenda. Very bullish. Okay, let's come back home and talk about Minnesota. And again, just like these foreign policy stories, there's multiple layers here. But I want to talk about the question of the politics of this for the national audience. The Democrats believe, and for the first time, I think they might be right, that this is a time when Donald Trump's overplayed his hand. If you look at all the public opinion polls, people are very negative about the shooting of a week ago. They're very negative about ICE. CNN poll showed a majority saying ICE is making America less safe. Republicans are pretty supportive, but not overwhelmingly as compared to the way they normally are with the president. Independents are overwhelmingly disapproving. David Shore, who's a very well-respected Democratic analyst, says this, is on Twitter. He says they tested 15 viral videos about the Minneapolis shooting, raw eyewitness footage, and straightforward reporting, and all of that consistently drove meaningful increases in Trump's disapproval. Said the testing found that the killings, quote, has broken through with voters. 85% say they've heard at least a little bit about it. 76% saying they see some of the footage. And Democratic proposals to rein in ICE have broad support. And we've seen the public polls, even abolishing ICE is getting close to parity. So, Ben, should from a political point of view, should the Republican Party be worried that the way this is being executed is taking away from the positive political impact the immigration has had for the party for a long time?
Yeah, I don't. And look, I think if you pull any video of anyone dying, it's not going to poll well, right? Like that's just common sense 101. Does that mean that you change what you're doing and going after the worst among us who actually are criminals killing people, gang members, and those that are in the cartel, those that have gone after children? Look at the people that the White House put out a list that have literally been caught in the last week and a half in Minneapolis. Heinous crimes against children, rape against children. So if you poll that as well, do you want that living among you in your community? The answer is overwhelmingly no. So I think this president and this White House have actually been really smart about this. You don't do things based on a poll. You do things based on right and wrong. And law enforcement is an issue that the majority of Americans voted for Donald Trump for law and order. I think anytime you have a video of someone dying, regardless of what happened around it, it's not going to poll well. That doesn't mean you stop doing law enforcement, and that's what the president's committed to. So I'm not worried about this. Those that I've talked to at the White House and those on Capitol Hill that I was with yesterday and the day before in D.C., they understand what stay the course means, and ultimately it's going to come down to crime statistics at the end of the year. Are you safer in Chicago, in Memphis, in New Orleans, in Baltimore, in Minneapolis? And I think the answer is going to be yes, and there's going to be huge data to support that, and that's what really matters.
Okay, before we switch to your colleague, I take what you're saying, and I agree with you. That's the posture of the White House and their allies on Capitol Hill. But the favorable ratings of the president on handling immigration have unambiguously gone down, and Republicans will tell you their private polling shows that. Are you saying that doesn't matter, or that when there's more discussion of the underlying issues, that his favorability will go up on those?
I think his favorability will go up, and I think when you see the number of people that have not been killed, and you see the crime stats that come out, let's not forget Washington D.C. lied about their crime statistics to try to act like it was safer than it was. That's been exposed. You look at D.C. now; people feel like they are safer in D.C. than they've been in decades. So when you put that out there and you do it when it comes towards a midterm, there will be, this is on the ballot in the midterm. There's no doubt about it. Is there time for the president to do what he promised he was going to do and then have the upside from it? Yes. If you're looking for instant gratification in law enforcement, which is not really law enforcement, right? You just go wherever the wind goes and there's one shooting that's caught and so you immediately abandon. You're never going to make America safer again. This is a core of the president. He believes in it personally. Those around him believe in it, and that's who he hired. So I think there's more than enough time for the president to get the accolades he deserves on this.
Yeah, see, one thing I love about your analysis is it's often, almost always, informed by the fact that you talk to real people and not just people in politics. So what do you make of this notion that this story has broken through to people and it's affecting their view of the two parties, and that it, at a minimum, can really energize Democrats to turn out in the fall?
Well, what I'm hearing from folks on the Hill and off the Hill is impressive to see how the public has turned from regarding this issue when it comes to the president. This was his strongest issue. This is the one, I will say it unabashedly, he beat Democrats at. He recognized the problem. He hammered the messaging over and over again, and he cruised all the way to the White House on part of this issue. And now it feels that he has pushed too much of the enforcement part of this issue and forgotten that a lot of this policy is marketing. ICE has really pushed marketing. Kristi Noem, they've utilized social media. But on the other hand, as a counterpoint, so have the very people living in those communities. So as many curated videos you can put out of ICE hopping out of vans and ramming down doors, so then can the people put out videos of you taking people off of roofs, stopping them and doing, are you a U.S. citizen check while they're pumping gas at a gas station. And they might have ignored it before, but all of that combined with this shooting starts to build in a, well, what is the purpose of ICE? And we start to look at the enforcement. We start to look at the training. Look, there are videos that exist of 2016 of CNN reporters going on ride-alongs with ICE during the Obama era. We know that ICE has always existed, but they've existed in an almost non-combative form to the daily lives of the communities that they are policing. What did the Trump administration do, and why is there so much ire with this particular president? Because he changed the look of ICE again to the marketing. Now we're in unmarked vehicles. Now we're completely masked. So of course there's going to be a negative response to an organization that has existed that existed before Donald Trump first took the presidency. Look, Democrats now have a chance to grab onto that energy, but they will run into a trap if they jump the shark and do abolish ICE. And I don't want to compare apples to oranges, all of that, because they say the defund the police is different. It is all the same when it comes to language, even if you get into the weeds of it. And so now Democrats have a really great opportunity going into the midterms to talk about we are looking at ways of reforming. We are looking at ways of analyzing the way that they are trained. What are the hoops that allow people to become ICE law enforcement officers? That is a more direct path that Democrats can take that will be helpful to them.
Ben, your fellow Texas talker, Joe Rogan, who some weeks edges out your show. So he's got a following. He got a lot of attention this week for saying that he's seen some stuff in Minnesota and elsewhere that he doesn't like, that he doesn't think is consistent with American values. In all the reporting and all the videos you've seen, have you seen ICE do anything that makes you say, no, that's not the right way to run this? Stipulating your overall support for their mission and for their conduct. Have you seen anything that gives you pause about how they're executing?
I don't. And the reason why is, look, I come from a law enforcement family. And when you are going out there and asking these men and women to risk their lives, and you look at just the video that's out right now going viral of them attacking an ICE agent, smashing the vehicle, ripping his gun safe out of the car, breaking it open and stealing ammunition and firearms, that's what I see as the other side of this. And I also look at the crime stats and I look at who they're going after and the doxing of ICE agents. So there's nothing I've seen. And look, I'd be the first to say it. If I thought there was an abuse of power, I would be saying that. If I thought that they were doing something wrong or going outside the scope of the law, I'd be saying that. But I think the majority of Americans have said overwhelming in this last election, law and order is on the ballot, getting rid of illegal immigrants is on the ballot, making sure that we find the worst among us is on the ballot. If you want to clean it up, and the voters said they did, well, you've got to clean it up, and it's going to have to happen this way, especially when you have mayors who are now going after ICE. And this is the problem with the Democratic Party, telling ICE to get the F out of your city and attacking ICE like they are the cartel. When that is the mayor of Minneapolis, and you have Governor Walz doing what he's doing, for example, like the Democrats are on the wrong side of this. And you can say as much you want to in a PC way that, oh, well, we think it should be done a little different, X, Y, and Z. No, look at the spokespeople for the Democratic Party right now. Ground zero, telling ICE to get the F out of your city. They politicize this. And I still think the American people are going to stand with Donald Trump on this one, especially the midterms. It's on the ballot. If I'm wrong, Democrats have a big win. I don't think I'm wrong, and I think the president doesn't believe that either.
So what would you attribute the clear lack of a change in support for ICE? Are people saying in the CNN poll, which again, people can deride CNN, but there's nothing wrong with their polling. People say ICE is making America less safe. Why would they be saying that?
I think it's because of the propaganda that's been put out there by the media attacking ICE agents day after day after day. And so when you undermine law enforcement the way that they have and the coverage, the way that they've done it, saying that an innocent woman was killed by ICE when that woman targeted and tried to use a 2-ton vehicle to run over an ICE agent and it cost her life. Yeah, that can change a poll, but it doesn't change the reality that ICE agents are under attack because the Democratic Party has said that they are public enemy number one, and they are funding the people that are going out there and attacking these ICE agents. And at the end of the day, I think you either have one of two things. You have an ADD culture where you can convince them of anything in 30 seconds from a soundbite, or you have thoughtful American voters that look at their communities and they go, wow, it really is different. Yes, I do feel safer than I am now. We've seen it in DC. We've seen it in Houston, where I am right now with ICE enforcement. Overwhelming in a liberal city, which is Houston proper now. We are seeing the crime stats come down significantly. And when you have that, then you ask people a different question. Do you feel safer than you did 6 months ago? And the answer is yes. That's the payoff.
Okay. Yemisi's having a little bit of an audio issue. So, Ben, I'm going to stay with you until she's able to get back and join us. What's the division within the
It's back. It's back.
The alarm. Okay.
We had a little fire alarm issue.
All right. Then I'll come back to you. Thank you. What's the division within your party right now that most troubles you within the Democratic Party? And Ben, I'm going to ask you the same question about the Republicans. What's the ideological principled division that you find most troubling and dangerous for the party? Yemisi.
The biggest thing that I think the party is facing is the direction of the party. And you see this the most in intra conversations at the DNC. The focus of the DNC chair, Ken Martin, and other congressional leaders is we have to move past Trump. Trump is not on the ballot once we get past the midterms. Well, for a lot of folks, especially I would say the No Kings Rally demographic, which I like to say are like the older folks that get more active. And they're also the people in the Democratic Party that we can rely on to vote the most, are not past that moment. And the more that Trump does that they find egregious and against the Constitution and what we believe in as the principles of democracy, the more they want to ground in that this is about Trump. But there's a large swath of the party, especially folks who are trending younger, that are looking at the price of housing costs, that are looking at the kitchen table issues, right? Because we don't have kitchen table issues, we rent apartments, that are saying, well, we need to look past that to more of a populist look at the economy. So I would say those are the two dividing lines. Yeah. We're going to see that the most in candidates that are represented during the midterms, and then also who we end up picking when it comes to the 2028 race.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant because it really is so emotional for the people in that first camp, the No Kings branch of the party, wing of the party. They really don't want to talk about anything else. And if you try to engage them on other stuff, they act like almost like it's an insult, like you're not talking about what's real. Is it possible to do both? Is it possible to say, hey, here are my 3 points on affordability, but this is all in service of stopping Donald Trump? Or you think in a real world, people are just polarized along the two poles?
In the most perfect, beautiful world, it would be possible to introduce some kind of nuance into it. Yeah. I don't know if at this point it is. I mean, you have a Democratic Party that's almost been shell-shocked, conditioned to be so reactive to Trump. And I understand that. I was there at the women's rally for that first year. But since then, we haven't moved past into anything substantive. And we've always pronounced what we are against, and we have never said what we are for. And I think the new candidates coming in are going to reject a lot of what past candidates have done coming into Congress and running for president.
Yeah. Brilliantly said. Ben, what's the biggest division in your party and the conservative side that worries you?
It actually goes to both parties, and I'm not kidding when I say this. Trump derangement syndrome. There is still the older guard, the Mitt Romney-esque, you mentioned earlier, the senator from Mississippi who's like standing up to Trump. It's like, what are you doing? This is still the Republican Party right now, is the party of Trump, and they want so badly to move past it that they're looking for any moment they can get their hands on to say, hey, Donald Trump's a liability. It's what they did in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. And so this last election, a lot of them were smart enough to like shut up and realize you don't want to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, but they can't wait for him to become weak so that then they can be like, all right, we're back in charge. And I think that's a real problem now on Capitol Hill with some of the establishment older guys that have been there forever. They also hate that Donald Trump takes up all the oxygen in the room. And there's some Republicans that are ready to kind of get their name out there for big elections coming up, the next presidential. And so I worry that it went on issues that there could be a quick jump from Trump, just like we see in the past, because you want to distinguish yourself from Trump. And I think that's always going to be a threat to him. He's got to be in charge and have a high approval rating for the party to stay together, because there's some that can't wait to screw him any way they can, even more than some Democrats.
Yeah, it's funny. You both gave great answers. I remember back, it was 2006 or 7, a New York Post reporter started a website about Hillary Clinton that said, it's all about her. And his point was like all our political conversations eventually come back to Hillary Clinton and she dominates them. And I mean, the level to which she dominated compared to how much Trump dominated is like not even close.
Yeah.
He's so dominant for a decade in our politics and our culture. And both your answers, I think, were spot on and a testament to that. I know my listeners and my viewers well, all Nexters, are asking themselves right now, how can I get more content from these two? So tell us where your stuff is and how people can listen, read, watch, etc. Yemisi.
You can find me on Instagram, Yum Yams, on TikTok. I love TikTok. I use TikTok all the time. I've got one blowing up right now that's pretty critical of the Pod Save America boys. Speaking of people who have not moved past a moment, And,
they've monetized their Trump drain.
Yeah. And we could do a whole show about the ecosystem in Washington, D.C. that has run off the back of one Barack Obama, and maybe they'll find another candidate to run off of moving forward.
And you're on X also, I happen to know.
Yes, I am on X. I don't post as much as you and Ben. I'm more of a lurker on X.
Yeah. All right. Ben, where can people see, hear, listen, read, watch, etc.?
Yeah, if you're on X, it's Ben Ferguson Show on X. On Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast. You can grab the Ben Ferguson Podcast as well. And I do one that's actually kind of gotten big. It's called the 47 Morning Update. If you want to know what's coming out of the White House every day, it's about 10 to 12 minutes long. It's a quick synopsis of the day ahead. So grab the 47 Morning Update. And obviously, co-host Verdict with Ted Cruz, that podcast as well.
You are kings of content, both of you. Thank you. Grateful to you both. Love having you on and look forward to having you back.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for today's program. We'll be back on Tuesday, brand new episode. As always, we want to grow our ranks here. So please subscribe to Next Up on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, or really do both, and make sure you tell all your friends, family, even your enemies, especially your enemies maybe, how they can stay up with everything that's coming next up by watching, listening to this program. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on Tuesday.